Hello everyone. A few days ago we had Sam Jefferson on board from Sailing Today. We're glad to be sharing his review of the Windelo 54 Yachting as a world premiere.
So I'm here on board the Windelo 54. It's a sort of first look at this boat. It's at the multi-hull show in Montez, and a very interesting boat. Windelo is starting to build a name for themselves, to be honest. They're a relatively new company, but they're building up a reputation for sort of green yachting, which is obviously very fashionable at the moment, but they have really blazed a trail. And what makes this boat so interesting, along with its smaller sister, the 50, is that it's not built in quite the same way as most traditional yachts. It's usually fiberglass. This one uses basalt fibers, which some may be familiar with as obviously volcanic material, and that's an integral part of the whole construction, which is obviously much more sustainable and better for the environment. So that's obviously a huge feature, but along with that, the boat's got 2 electric motors, so they're pioneering that. Others are following, but they're certainly one of the first on a big cruising yacht to do that. And there are many other sustainable features. They use PET, which is recycled plastic, coring throughout, and all the woodwork is sustainably sourced. So these are all really important features, and obviously things we're all thinking about at the moment as we think about the planet. But Windelo is definitely pushing that agenda, and that's a really good thing. But on top of that, that's all very well, but you need to create a nice boat, and this Windelo 54 certainly looks the part. So it's a sort of high quality cruising multi-hull, sort of blue water multi-hull, and well, first impressions are very good. So I'm obviously here in the main saloon, and yeah, well, it speaks for itself really. I don't need to say too much about it. We've got a lovely seating area, masses of light, a nice kitchen, and a very sociable area with this flip sort of garage door into the cockpit, which means when you open that up, you have a huge shed, indoor-outdoor space. And obviously not the nicest day here in Montez, not very typical, but even so you get a feeling of the potential for enjoying a sundown. This is actually they have 3 choices: the adventure, sport, and this one, which is yachting. And yachting is sort of the high end. They're all high end, but this is a more sort of top quality finish, and certainly the feel of the boat is excellent, very impressive. Out here on the foredeck, obviously a big space, and one notable feature is how big this sort of front trampoline is, and that's obviously to give you plenty of space for the boat when it's piercing into waves and sort of big sprays coming onto the boat. It just gives you a lot of clearance. And one other notable feature is how high the nose out of the water. They've made that a priority too, because if the nacelle's too close to the water, obviously when you're in a big sea, that can slam, and it's, well, at the very least, unnerving. So that's been an important feature. And the freeboard overall is noticeably quite high. It's 2 meters, in fact, so you feel well out of the water here. And there's an immense feeling of space as well. The rig is powerful, and on this boat we've got an aluminium mast, but you can have a carbon one. And it's we've got a big self-tacker here, forward triangle self-tacker. That can sometimes lose you a bit of power, but as you can see, because the foredeck is so long, it's actually a big sail, and the mast is actually placed right in the centre of the boat, the centre point of the boat. The boom is very practical because for accessing the sail back, you know, if you're stood on that coach roof, it's not a problem. I've experienced myself kind of clambering up on little steps to unzip the sail bag and all the rest of it, so that's a great feature. And the traveller set well back is also nice. And the coach roof itself obviously is a big space, and the most significant feature there is of course the solar panels, of which there are many and very important. part of an electric powered boat, obviously, so that's a key feature. Side decks, very wide, feel very secure, and the notable feature, of course, are the 2 dagger boards. Very important if you've got potential performance in a blue water cat, which this one certainly does. And it's also notable that they're not angled. On many boats they are angled because it's easier for the construction to angle them to sort of for the interior, essentially, to give you more space. But Windelo have worked around that, and the completely vertical dagger boards are the most effective method. Basically, it's just often a bit tricky, which is why it isn't always the case. Got a sprit for a code 0 or a Jenica, a huge sail as well, which will give the boat a little lift off the wind. Other than that, we've got storage lockers here and here. The anchor locker is actually further back, which is good for weight distribution, obviously, because the anchor chain is quite significant, particularly on a multi-hull. And then we've also got big storage here, and on this boat, on the starboard side, under that hatch is a very generously proportioned skipper's cabin. That's an option. This boat is possibly going into charter, so that's why they want that. It just gives you an extra bit of accommodation as well. So yeah, a lot of space. And I suppose the only last thing to mention is that this mast is actually placed right in the centre of the boat, which is good for the balance of the boat and obviously the balance of the sail plan as well. So all of which points to a boat that is going to sail well. When I first tested the Windelo 50, this was the first time I'd seen this arrangement where you have a forward cockpit, and that brings with it many advantages. I find it's been copied a few times now as well, to be fair, but it's a great feature. Basically, it keeps you involved in the sailing. From a sailing point of view, you've got everything here. You've got 3 Harcum winches with the option of powered winches, which is probably good on a 54. And then you're right next to the mast. You've got all your jammers there. You've got everything at your fingertips, basically. Chart plotter, engine controls, obviously electric motor. No noise, but it is running. So from that point of view, you're right in the heart of the boat, and you feel very involved in the sailing. And having sailed the 50, you do feel, sometimes you feel detached when you're sailing a multi-hull. You feel detached from the action altogether, but actually with this arrangement, particularly with the door open there and the breeze blowing through, you had a very good feel. The boat feels smaller because you're at the bow, which when you're sailing actually feels good. And then you've got a really good view of the sail from here as well, both the head sail and the mainsail via this skylight. And there's another one on the other side as well. So it's a great arrangement. I like it a lot. I mean, some people would like their helms outboard, and everyone has their own preference, but this works very well for a blue water cruising multi-hull. Very practical. And the other real benefit of it, and it is a great benefit, is obviously you can close off the cockpit so it's separate from the accommodation, but on a normal day, why would you? Because the whole point is, if you're sailing with your family or friends, you don't want to separate them off. So you're sailing and they're relaxing. You want to relax with them while you're sailing. And this arrangement works very well because you can be here in charge of the boat, trimming the sails and whatever, while, you know, the person next to you is cooking or reading a book or whatever. You don't have that sense of separation which you sometimes get. Everyone's working on getting around a bit. It does happen. So it's a great solution, and an innovative solution as well. I'm all for it. So, and having sailed on the 50, I have to say, for me it worked very well. Yeah, and I mean, the other great thing about this is the safety point of view. I mean, you don't have to go out on deck at all, really, to do pretty much everything. I mean, short of setting up the Jenica, everything can be done from here. So, you know, on a night passage, the last thing you want to do is be out wandering around on deck, and that is negated by this, which is a wonderful feature. And also, thinking about a night passage, you know, you can have people, you want to say kids, if they come up to ask a question, there really isn't a problem. They're secure in this area. They come and ask you whatever it is. You're not worried about them at any point because they're in a very secure area. And this can also be, obviously at night, this can be closed in, and it becomes, you know, if it was a cold night, it's a very cosy enclosed space. But at the same time, you know, on a nice sunny day, you can open it all up and you can feel thoroughly involved in sailing. So it's a very versatile solution, essentially. So galley area, nice U-shaped galley, good handholds and a good feeling of being in a closed space. You feel secure here. At the same time, you're right next to the helm, so you're not in the kitchen sort of isolated from everyone else. It's a really sociable place. Lovely Korean work surface as well, by the way. And then right next to the dining table, so serving up is a delight. So this one differs from the 50 that I tested from memory. I think that had the galley there, and I find this is an excellent arrangement. But the overall feeling of involvement on the boat is really superb. And this is this sort of nerve centre, of course, because eating is the most important. And we have an induction hob. It's a final detail which is important, obviously, for the electric boat. They've got acres of electricity to spare, so an induction hob is much better than a gas one, obviously, for many reasons. This is actually the owner's suite on this boat, and I suppose the pièce de résistance is this extraordinary window which lets in just so much light, and obviously as you're lying in bed at your anchorage in some Pacific lagoon, you're looking out on this incredible view. So it's really a triumph for this boat in terms of the amount of light and vision it gives you. So that's the most notable feature, but obviously just the general sense of size is also impressive, and the light. Very comfortable. There's a number of layout options available from Windelo. This boat is actually probably one of less usual in that it has 4 cabins plus the skipper's cabin forward, so it's got an awful lot of accommodation. I think that's because they're thinking possibly about chartering the boat. But usually in the standard arrangement you'd have this is the owner's hull really, so you'd have this is the owner's bedroom, obviously. Then forward you'd have a huge bathroom and extra storage as well. But this boat's gone for 4 cabins, which it has space enough to do, that's for sure. So yeah, that's obviously Windelo. It's not custom, but it's semi-custom, so there are many little tweaks and features that they will accommodate, which perhaps a mass manufacturer wouldn't do. Okay, so forward cabin, obviously again a lot of light, this huge port light, and a good sense of space. 2 metre headroom throughout the boat, which is impressive. And on this boat, obviously, this on some boats would be the owner's shower room and bathroom. You can imagine the size, but on this boat, we've gone for another double, and then you've got a separate shower room and heads just set off to starboard on the inside of the hull, which are perfectly amped with their big rooms as well by the standard of yachts. So, but it would certainly be an immense bathroom if they went for that option. So very comfortable, and again the real theme is the light and the space. I mean, I'm not the tallest, but even so I'm really not going to get anywhere near touching my head on that. I mean, even if you were 6 foot you would be nowhere near. A lovely view of rainy Grand Mott. Okay, so now we're in the starboard aft cabin, which is also very big. Again, a huge window, absolutely magnificent, and a nice sized cupboard there as well for a wardrobe for all your clothes and stuff, which is quite impressive. Then we move heads there, forward cabin, shower room just off that, and forward cabin, which is again really comfortable and spacious with a lot of light and good storage. Huge amount of storage there, for example. if you were chartering out this boat, you would certainly not have a problem. The guests would be quite happy, I think. Okay, so as you can see, there's a curve to this wall, and you might be wondering, well, what's that all about? But that is the daggerboard case, and yeah, I mean, this is the challenge that multi-hull designers face: is you want a vertical daggerboard as the most effective foil, basically, but trying to fit that into the hull without getting in everyone's way is quite tricky. But I think that's been done quite elegantly here. It's no problem at all. This corridor's good and wide, so yeah, that works really well. So obviously, very important to this boat, integral part of the whole concept, are the electric motors. They've been supplied by Bell Marine. They're shaft driven, which is a good feature. Sail driver, that's an extra complication. So shaft driven, obviously twin motors, and they give you, under battery power alone, 4 hours. But on top of that, you obviously have the generator. You have hydro regeneration from the propellers. So as they spin round, they actually provide extra power. You also have the solar panels. So there's a number of backups, and on top of that are 2 diesel generators, which extend your range to 1,100 nautical miles. So that would get you about a third of the way across the Atlantic under power alone. So obviously, that's even before you take in hydro regeneration and solar as well. So acres of power, and that's obviously a very key and important part of what this boat is all about. Here we have the readout giving you all the info you need. Not so much at the moment, obviously, because we're not going anywhere, but I mean, this is the area where you really everyone wants to see progress, and they want to see that it's viable. And certainly the predecessor to the Windelo 50 has been across the Atlantic to New York, and was obviously a success. The throttles, no noise, but there is they are on. So that's quite one of the joys of electric motors, of course.
Well, thanks Sam for braving the weather of La Grande this year to introduce the new Windelo 54. Definitely a performance multi-hull with lots of comfort on board, and eco-advanced in its segment. We hope everyone enjoyed the video, found it informative, and we look forward to seeing you soon.